Hello everyone, my name is Mike, and this is The Bored Cyborg. Welcome back to yet another episode. Today I'm going to talk about non-horror films that scared me as a child. Yes, growing up in the 90s, I would see some movies that weren't necessarily horror films, or weren't horror films at all, that somehow affected me. And I want to talk about, 6 movies or so here, and talk about why they scared me, what about them freaked me out as a little kid growing up in the 90s. I'd love to know if there were any non-horror movies that freaked you guys out as children, so feel free to leave that down in the comments below and we'll get a little discussion rolling. Jumping right in, the first movie I want to talk about is Little Monsters. Now, when I rewatch a lot of these movies, they still affect me on that same visceral level. Obviously, I'm an adult now, I'm viewing it with a different perspective and understanding of filmmaking, but as a kid, they affected me deeply because, your little mind doesn't quite know what's real and what isn't when you're very young, and I still get that feeling when I watch these movies, and I love that. It really adds something whenever I rewatch any of these movies, but Little Monsters scared the shit out of me as a kid. Now, this is like a kid-friendly kind of movie. It's rated PG. It has Howie Mandel as this creepy monster guy. I also think Monsters, Inc. kind of ripped this movie off. But basically what scared me about this one was underneath Fred Savage's bed was this entire civilization of monsters. The cinematography and the set design and the atmosphere of this film freaked me out as a kid, and I would look under my bed on occasion because of this movie. I would think that there would be some sort of world or a portal that opened up underneath. I was fascinated by these types of stories like Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, which didn't freak me out. It more so fascinated me, and it was more wonderful, but this really scared me. But I'll always remember the first time I saw it, and with Fred Savage discovering Howie Mandel's character here, and Howie Mandel bringing him down to that underground, and oh man, the imagery down there, it just ingrained into my mind at this point. So I had to talk about The Little Monsters as the first non-horror movie that freaked me out. Now, you could argue that this has some horror elements, but it is for kids. It is made for kids and for a family. It's a family movie. But that is Little Monsters. I remember discovering this movie on VHS. My father had owned it in the early 90s, and I popped it in, and that is Death Becomes Her. Now, I haven't seen this movie in years, but what I remember freaking me out to no end was really the special effects, the groundbreaking special effects in this movie. I have watched this, since I was a kid. From what I remember is a movie about these women wanting to retain their youth and their beauty, and so they go to extreme measures to do so. And there are all these weird skin effects and like heads turning around and like moving in unnatural positions, and oh my god, it scared the shit out of me. Watching it now, I watched this probably 10 years ago. Obviously, it's been a while, but watching it then, I really was like, man, this is a funny movie. It's hilarious. It's a satire, and I think it's brilliant, and I really need to rewatch it since I haven't seen it in so long, but man, as a kid, those images f***ed me up, and it stems from me not knowing, again, that movies were all fake. I didn't understand filmmaking. I didn't understand the production of movies, So to me, to my youthful, naive eye, this was reality. And so it creeped me out to no end. That is Death Becomes Her. Next up is a movie I still adore to this day. I watch it every couple of years. I think this is such an underrated sequel. It's not even funny how underrated this is. That is The Return to Oz. I love this movie. Oh, man. And as a kid, I loved it as well, but it freaked me out, man. The scenes that really stick with me, the first one that comes to mind is the roller guys that are in that sort of dilapidated town, and they're rolling around sort of on all fours, and they're making these, like, high-pitched chatter, like, cackles, I should say, like, and they're, like, moving around and like, encircling Dorothy, and she's running around, and when she turns a corner, there's another one, and then she turns around, and there's another one, and, oh, that scared the shit out of me as a kid. Another thing that scared me about this movie was the main villain, and how she would go into her her repertoire of heads, replace her head and put on another one depending on how she was feeling. Now as an adult, a brilliant idea and a brilliant scene that is creepy as hell, but as a kid scared the shit out of me. No doubt about it. Now I recognize that this film has dark fantasy elements. I don't think it has any elements that really... Well, it has elements that tinge on horror, but it is a dark fantasy film. Overall, this movie is more fantastical than horrific, but it is dismal. It is sad. As an adult, what creeps me out so much more so than when I was a kid is the themes of this movie. Holy shit, this movie deals with heavy-ass themes. In the beginning of the film, it's all dreary and thundering and raining, and Dorothy is sent to a mental institution because of what she believes she saw in the original Wizard of Oz. And so, goddamn, right there, it's just like a 180 turn. I love that idea. And then these doctors are running tests on her and hooking her up to all these weird machines, which would later play a role in the characters she encounters in Oz again. This is such a brilliant movie. I want to talk about this movie in depth one day for sure, but this is just another one that scared me shitless as a child, but I still love it to this day. Next one I'm not going to go too in-depth with because I did talk about it at great lengths in my top 10 films from 1991 list that I put out a few weeks ago as of recording this video. What scared me about this movie, really only one scene, one thing about this movie freaked me out as a kid, and it's actually funny now with where I am as a 32-year-old. It was the boogie box. I watched this movie incessantly when I was a kid. And whenever that boogie box scene would come up, I would look away, I would fast forward, I would leave the room. I hated it because, it had so many creepy, squirmy bugs, and then they'd put a person in and pour the bugs in, and they'd essentially eat them alive. Oh God, it scared me shitless. I was afraid of bugs for a very long time. And then in my mid-20s, I started learning about entomology and biology and psychology, evolutionary biology, all these cool things. And now I love bugs. I consider myself an amateur entomologist. I love identifying bugs and looking at them and watching them do their thing. I just love it now. It's one of those things where you start to learn about something and your fear starts to dissipate because you understand it. And I think that, in essence, is a really important thing to know and understand and live by. But Hook, the boogie box, oh my God, scared me shitless as a kid. Next up, Ghost. This film was like being given away at McDonald's in the mid-90s or early 90s when it came out on VHS. I remember that. They were giving it away in some sort of some sort of marketing thing. And we got the VHS and I watched this with my mom and dad when I was like 5 or 6. It's a romance movie with paranormal elements, but what freaked me out as a kid were the apparitions. In the second... Oh my God. I'm like freaking out about it now. Just thinking about it. Those apparitions as a kid were so creepy to me. And the fact that Patrick Swayze's character is now dead and still existing on Earth. I didn't know what the hell death was. I didn't have a comprehension of what death was. And so being exposed to these themes at 5 or 6 really got my mind going. But whenever those apparitions, those poltergeist sort of shadowy figures would be on screen, I remember I would cuddle up to my mom and close my eyes because it was just so freaky. Watching it now, I love this movie. I still think this is a great movie. It's been parodied, it's been mocked, but Whoopi Goldberg in this is fantastic. Demi Moore and Patrick Swayze, their romance is beautiful, honestly. The film isn't perfect, but I still love it to this day. And those damn apparitions, man. Every time they come on screen, I still get a little bit of a shudder, like, oh God, those used to freak me out. Next up is The Brave Little Toaster. Man, I get emotional thinking about this movie. It was one of those from my childhood that just helped mold me, just swept me away, and I adore this movie to this day. But here's the thing. I have a hard time watching it because the nostalgia is so heavy. It's so palpable for this movie. I remember certain places I was watching it and certain emotions that I had watching it, and God, so many different emotions too, and that's what really makes Brave Little Toaster special. I don't know how it holds up, and I really don't care how it holds up. It's about how it affected me as a kid. This movie was one of the earliest movies that made me cry. When the family was leaving in the beginning and leaving behind the toaster and Blanky and all the lamp and all the anthropomorphized household appliances, man, I always felt so bad. That image of the car driving away into the distance and the little boy looking back, I may not even be remembering it right, but that's what I'm getting at. This film helped me fill in the gaps and just moved me to no end. But this has a horrific scene in it that I'm going to try to recall, where a junk dealer sort of guy comes across some of the appliances and starts taking them apart. It's horrific. And at that point, you really connect with all these characters, especially as a child. And so when I saw this big, fat, greasy, balding animated character taking these beings apart, that's the thing. He saw them as just appliances. The audience saw them as beings. And my little mind, they were real in my little mind, so it really messed me up, guys. I don't know if any of you had the same sort of effect with this, but that scene is one of the scenes that prevents me from rewatching this as an adult. I gotta be honest, just all those emotions, it's gonna be too much for me. So that is The Brave Little Toaster. Ugh. Such a nostalgic film. One of the most nostalgic films for me. And last but not least, I saved this one for last because this is funny. The Langoliers. This aired in the mid-90s. I want to say like 94, 95. And I remember sitting down and watching this with the family. It was an event whenever a Stephen King TV miniseries would be syndicated or re-syndicated or aired for the first time, premiered. And so we gathered around the TV, and thus starts The Langoliers. Now, this is more of a mystery, drama, sci-fi sort of film. I haven't seen it in years, probably like 5 or 6 years. I still like it, but as a kid, I loved it. And it's almost infamous now, almost unbeknownst to me for a long time, for the abysmal early CG. Now, at the time, it wasn't bad. It was the first time I had seen anything like that on screen. It was uncanny. It was otherworldly with these chomping things that were just coming for these people that were stranded at this airport. Everybody disappeared, and then they would hear this loud sound, which I could still hear resonating in my mind. This like staticky, chattering sound. So scary as a young kid. And then when you'd see the Langoliers, it just scared the shit out of me. The CG holds up awfully. I admit that. But as a kid, I had never seen anything like it. It was otherworldly. And I think that's what made it so effective in my mind. CG was a new thing. This was a whole new technology. And those damn Langoliers, man. They scared the shit out of me. I had to save this one for last because I know there's a stigma around this film and how bad the CGI is. And yeah, I admit, it's awful. Watching it now, it's pretty bad. I don't know if I've seen much worse, to be quite honest. But that is The Langoliers, man. I want to rewatch this one soon. This is a movie that I always have fun with. I just want to thank you guys for checking out my little discussion of non-horror movies that freaked me out or scared me shitless as a child. I'd love to know if there are any non-horror movies that freaked you guys out, so feel free to leave those down in the comments below and try to relegate it to your childhood, from 2 to 14 or whatever. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit the thumbs up button, and if you're new to the channel and want to see more videos like it, go ahead and hit the subscribe button as well as the little bell for notifications. Anyway, guys, I will see you all next time. Bored Cyborg, out. Schwat!